What did we make of another Manchester United defeat in a competition they've kind of given up on now because all their eggs are in the Europa League basket, LME?
Yes, all the eggs are in the basket of the Europa League final, but really it's the same old story. It's an inconsistent, fragile, an open invitation to anybody that comes to Old Trafford to just really do anything. And I understand that there's a lot of focus on the Europa League final. We've just coming off, obviously, a European week. So there's a lot at stake for Ruben Amorim to try and help United get at least a trophy. And also, if you win it, obviously you get European competition for the next season. But that's no excuse. I mean, we're talking about a West Ham United who are still trying to find their way under Graham Potter. We've talked about this in the past. Some were even, becoming impatient with the former Brighton and Chelsea manager. And here they come to Manchester United. Wan-Bissaka, I think, had a point to make against his former club. And it was all too easy in many ways. But once again, here we are. You mentioned the numbers, 17 losses. Look where they are in the table. You know, there was a time when we would say Old Trafford was this absolute fortress. There was a time when we would say Man United can get things done, even if it's in the last minutes of a match. No longer, no more. So, I think that regardless of what happens in the Europa League final, this is going to be a season for everybody to forget and for Ruben Amorim to really wake up in the summer and say, okay, what are we doing here? Because if we want to be a top 10 team, never mind Champions League, never mind Europa League, if we want to be a top 10 team, we have to do a lot. It's too many losses for a season.
All right, Janusz, help me make this make sense for Manchester United. Europa League finalists, yet since Graham Potter took over at West Ham, only the bottom three sides have got fewer points, yet West Ham go to Old Trafford and win comfortably. It's the fixture most teams in England want right now, a game against Man United at Old Trafford. Yet if they win the Europa League final, they're playing in the Champions League next season. That doesn't make sense, does it?
No, because they don't deserve it. Don't be deceived by what you see in Europa League, right? Man United are 1,000 miles away from being a good team. They just, and it's just a bad team, and it's going to be difficult to fix them. We're going to get onto Spurs. It's a very similar situation, very similar result today. But at least with Spurs, I see some hope. I'll leave it for that. But Manchester United are just terrible, and we see this game in and game out, as you've mentioned. I mean, for a team like United to lose 9 games at Old Trafford, I mean, just unacceptable. And no matter how you slice it, I mean, you saw quite a difference in the second half when Maguire, Dorgu, Garnacho, and Eriksen came in. Those are the guys. A lot of these guys were rested because of that. But still, I've never felt that there's hope for United this season. I don't feel there's hope for United next season. However, as you've mentioned, being in the Champions League gives you at least an appearance that you're a serious team, because at the moment they're not.
Okay, LME, 2 scenarios here, and answer them both if you wouldn't mind. Manchester United's season is what if they win the Europa League? And secondary, Manchester United's season is what if they lose in the Europa League final?
If they win, it's barely passable as a season. If they lose, is a continued narrative of their horrific journey so far for the last few seasons. So, ultimately, MD, everything Janusz just said is correct. I'll echo once again what I said. I just think that this is the problem when you go to European competitions and you win a trophy or you get to a final. It kind of masquerades the overall issue. It's kind of a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, because even though you get a trophy and it's important financially, Champions League football, I mean, unbelievable to even consider the fact that they would be playing Champions League football next season, right? But it doesn't solve the overall current problem. So if they win it, it's a passable reflection or an antidote, I guess, to their fans, because at least they will have something to celebrate. But if they lose it, woof, what a horrific, terrible season that just became even more congested. So I'm with Janusz. I mean, I don't know where this is going. I don't know what they have to do this summer, because we can talk about, players that they have to bring in, and we've talked about how they need a proper striker. But they need, here's the thing. What would Manchester United be, Andy, if it wasn't for Bruno Fernandes this season as well, by the way. Like, it would just be, I mean, we're talking a relegation contender, I think. You know, it's that bad. So there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. A Europa League trophy would be a great help for the fans, but so much to do. The journey is long.
And Janusz, a quick word about West Ham, because there's a lot of away fans that have been to Old Trafford over the years and been fortunate just to lose 2 or 3-0. They've been absolutely thumped. So as much as winning at Old Trafford for an away team these days doesn't appear like it's a great feat from those of us kind of outside of English football, for West Ham supporters, it's something to enjoy because they've probably been there, those that go to all the away games on many occasions and never tasted that much success. So it's still worth enjoying. The problem they've got next season, though, is they need a striker as well, with Kudus and Bowen as the kind of front two in a 3-5-2. How easy is it going to be to attract a striker if the likes of Arsenal aren't able to do so?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about West Ham, they're probably very, very thankful for teams like Manchester United and Spurs, because otherwise we'd be paying so much attention in terms of how bad West Ham are, and we're not. They are very, very lucky because they're under the radar in terms of our critique. I mean, it'll come when we summarize the season, but think about that. Think about over the past few years how much time we spent talking about, say, Everton. And if you look at West Ham and their ambitions, I think they're bigger, right? You look at where they are, being in London, a big stadium, constantly changing the teams. We talk about how good they were last, 2, 3, or 4 seasons under David Moyes, and this unbelievable collapse, even though they got the likes of Lopetegui, who was supposed to make them play better, and now, Graham Potter. So it's been a bad season. Yes, it's always good to win against the likes of Manchester United. But is it a big deal? We just said it. Everyone goes to Old Trafford and beats Manchester United. So they are lucky. Can they get better? They have some pieces, I suppose, but I'm not convinced. That mess is there for us to analyze once we get past the bad seasons of the big clubs. That's something that West Ham want to be, but I don't know if they're anywhere near.
And of the 3 games that kicked off at the same time, the most important one was Nottingham Forest against Leicester City. This is a kind of Midlands rivalry. They hate each other. This is a bitter rivalry, and Leicester scored first. Bear in mind, Leicester are down, second bottom of the table. But then Forest go 2-1 up, and Leicester equalised through Buonanotte for a 2-2 draw. And LME, I'm just reading that the Forest owner was on the pitch at the end of the game as well. For Forest, they've secured European football next season, not in the way they would have liked, but that Champions League spot is slipping away, and a season that at times promised so much is ending with a bit of a whimper.
Yeah, I mean, you said it there. I think anybody that saw this match, Forest at home to Leicester City, without knowing the context of the derby and how much they actually detest each other, to your point, I was going to say, this might not be as easy for Forest as people may think. And that's exactly what happened. I will say Murillo's absence was massive. Hudson-Odoi, there was a little bit of an inconsistency between defense and offense. And to your point, Leicester City scoring first. But Facundo Buonanotte made the difference. He came on, and the man on loan from Brighton, who I'm a big fan of, he's only 20 years old. He really made the difference for Leicester City, and they kept pounding. And Leicester City, took advantage of the fact that Nottingham Forest are not necessarily as comfortable with the ball as they are off it when they counter. And I think that essentially, even though Nottingham Forest came back from 1-0 down to go 2-1 up, you always saw Leicester coming in this and wanting to get something out of it. And it is, now that you look at the table, I think the magic number is around the 69 points, and now they have to win both games, West Ham away and Chelsea at home, in order to even have a chance. And a draw was not what they needed today. But I will say this: we have to remember something. For them to have European football this season alone, I think is a really, really good achievement from Nuno Espirito Santo and this team. But I know it's so disheartening because the overall narrative was, let's try and get Champions League football. And it's not over, but it was definitely a result that they could not afford to not win, and they drew, and it was Facundo Buonanotte that made the difference.
Janusz, some breaking news. I mentioned briefly about the Forest owner on the pitch. I've just seen some pictures, and Marinakis in front of everybody, had a right go at Nuno Espirito Santo for,
Ugh.
I assume, dropping 2 points. He's had his eye on Champions League football and the riches that come with that. There's something about rich men and their playthings and how they go about that. That's going to be the headlines, and those images of Forest's Greek owner coming onto the pitch and having a go at his Portuguese manager, that's not what we want to see. That's not how you behave.
No, somebody's got to have a word with the Greek owner. He's in the Champions League anyway. I think Olympiacos made it technically.
Yeah, but he wanted Forest as well.
So he's going to be there. I mean, this team is a great season. It just doesn't seem that way because they've been up there for such a long time. But let's face it. I mean, they are an average team. They've picked the wrong time to have a run of better results. We've always waited for it. It seemed like it was never going to come, but it did. And it's not just today. That draw. You look at draw against Palace. You look at loss to Brentford. You look at loss at home to Everton. Right before that was Villa, but Villa's a proper team and is a better team than Forest. So I can understand the disappointment of sort of letting that slip away. But if you really look deep down and you look at the teams that most likely will finish ahead of them, you could probably honestly say that they were a better team, better squads, right? So they've been underperforming, and that's well done. That's fair play to their manager, and he definitely doesn't deserve that. By the way, it's still 2 matches. They may still make it, but if they don't, I'm okay with that, right? Because they are a team that's way overperforming, and today even their key players perform right in a clutch. Morgan Gibbs White scores a goal and has an assist. Chris Wood scores again. So they stood up when it was needed. But if you don't get a win against a team like Leicester and you drop off, Anyway, bottom line, shame on the owner because they're having a great season. Let's be honest.
Yeah, the optics are not good with this. Chris Wood, by the way, getting his 20th goal of a fantastic season, but Forest denied late on by Leicester City. We end with Tottenham Hotspur 0, Crystal Palace 2. Here's a question you weren't expecting, LME. What's harder for Crystal Palace? Winning the FA Cup final against Manchester City or keeping hold of Echegaray Eze for next season? Remember, Olise went to Bayern last summer and Eze got 2 more goals today and is worth a fortune. So what is going to be harder for Crystal Palace, beating City or keeping Eze?
I think the latter. I think keeping Eze. I think, in an FA Cup final, I think they could beat Manchester City. This isn't the Man City of last season. We saw what's been going on recently. And let me tell you something. This Palace side, since getting absolutely thumped by Newcastle on April 16th, they've been undefeated. They got some good results away at the Emirates. They thrashed my Villa 3-0 in the semi-finals. They got a point against Forest, and now they beat Tottenham. And by the way, we've been talking about United and obviously Tottenham, today's opponent, maybe they got their eye on the Europa League final. Well, Palace has their eye on the FA Cup final as well. They don't want to lose any key players. And Palace, it should have been more than 2-0. They really were all over Tottenham, which speaks obviously a lot of what Tottenham are doing. But, you mentioned Echegaray Eze, Daniel Munoz, of course, tremendous. Mateta, Ismaili Sarr. This is a team of a lot of individual talent, and Glasner's figuring out how to maneuver all of it. So yeah, Eze is going to be a very hot commodity this summer. He is a tremendous talent. So I would say that it's going to be harder to try and keep him than, obviously, Man City are the favorites in the FA Cup final, but I wouldn't be surprised if, Palace hold and they push to a really great historic win, something they have never done. So, the sentiment's going to be pretty big.
Janusz, only 5 teams in the Premier League have a better record away from home than Crystal Palace. How have they done that?
Look, after a very, very slow start, look at what Crystal Palace and their manager has done so far. I think, what you mentioned, that front line. I could make an argument that between Echegaray Eze, Mateta, and Ismaila Sarr, this is maybe the second most dangerous front line in the entire league after Liverpool.
Right now. Yeah.
And I bet you I could even get a small argument, right? I mean, Liverpool are still better if you look at everybody. There's more than three, right? They've performed tremendously. But in terms of consistency, I mean, this front three, it's not a lot of changing there. At least Liverpool can always throw, the Jotas, the Gakpos, and Luis Diaz and Nunez. I mean, there's 4 or 5 players that could come in and fit in when one is not performing or maybe injured. They really have to rely on this front line because there's not much changing there. So, I mean, from the front, I mean, you have Guehi in the back. That's a true leader, one of the best in the league and maybe in Europe, right? Where we're hearing many teams are very interested in bringing him over and taking him away from there. So look, I mean, that front line is very dangerous and very consistent, and it's been great because look, we can make all kinds of excuses for Spurs because of yes, the Europa League final, but here's Crystal Palace playing their strong lineup away from home, even though they're looking at City and a possible trophy in the FA Cup final. So fair play to Crystal Palace. They've deserved everything they've gotten because we were so close. Remember LME? What a terrible start. Glasner's got to go.
Yeah.
They got to change things, and they were patient. They stayed with it.
Yep.
The front three, by the way, at Newcastle, with Isak, with Jacob Murphy, with either Gordon or Barnes, would be in the discussion
They'd be
as
in
well.
Conversation.
Yeah, they'd be in the conversation, but yeah, again, it'd be hard to argue that Palace have got one of the best front threes in the league. I would end with Spurs, but why? I mean, what's the point of them in the Prem? Seriously, it's all about the Europa League. They win it, they might keep the manager. They lose it, he's probably gone. Their season's been a disgrace in the Premier League. They made 8 changes today, and even the Spurs fans are just not, they don't care about the Premier League. It's all about Bilbao and how to get a hotel room for under £1,000 a night. LME, you can have the last word on Spurs, because today it was just something else. And I tell you what, in fact, and don't even go to Spurs. Let's finish with the offside against Mateta that ensured that Sarr's goal, I think it was chalked off. 90% of his body's in his own half. The one little bit of his body that's in the opposition half is the top part of his arm that can still play the ball legally. Yet the goal is chalked off. That's not what offside was introduced for. By the letter of the law, the officials will say, oh, but it's correct. But the optics of this aren't good, are they?
Yeah, I've never really enjoyed it. I've got my own weird thing that I think we should. It's not weird. It's just I just think that there should always just be, to define offside should just be defined by daylight. And I think that when you have like the majority of somebody's body, to your point in Mateta, that's onside, like that should be enough in that situation. But it's the letter of law. What are you going to do? But I tell you something, that was just one of many examples of what Crystal Palace should have done and score more than 2 goals. And I thank you very much, Mark Donaldson, for not making me finish today on talking about Tottenham, because I really don't want to.
You're welcome.
The only thing that I'll just throw out to both of you is just like, are we about to see the most erratic, ridiculous Europa League final in recent history, or because of being a neutral, we'll have a lot of goals? There's just so much disarray and instability throughout both sides, and I don't know whether this is going to be a horrible 0-0 that takes you to penalties or 5-4 because nobody knows how to defend.
I tell you what's going to happen in the Europa League final. It's going to be a 4-4 draw. And then most of the penalties will be missed, and it'll be 1-0 on penalties. I don't know. Seriously, that is what that final might get with the two teams, because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, but today I lost faith in Ange, and I was a big, I've always defended him, but I'll tell you what, even if they win the Europa League, he's got to go. I mean, again, today was embarrassing what Palace did on the break. He's stubborn. They need stability. They need somebody that can give this first team balance, because unlike Manchester United, they have the quality on that team. You just have to get the best out of the players. You have to put away your ego. You have to play in some games not as high as they did, because today, I mean, Daniel Munoz alone could have scored 8 goals probably, or set up 8 goals.